What is going on, everybody? It is great to have you with me. A wise person once wrote these words: Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead, it slumbers, and things are not quite what they seem. Lives of great men and women all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. Still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait, and know how sublime a thing it is to suffer and yet still be strong. For time will teach ye, certain the truth, that even in failure, if given your level best, remember, there are no birds in last year's nest.
Vikings. What felt more like 2022 when you won all the first games?
I'm gonna work on getting some of these though. I gotta get that.
How does that ticket look for you?
Go, we'll take it. We'll take it. I love it. Sports Center, I like it.
Yo. Thank you kindly for joining me, everybody. It is great to have you with me. The Minnesota Vikings saved their season, at least for 1 week anyway, and they absolutely shocked the world and beat the San Francisco 49ers, allegedly the best team in the NFC and maybe even the NFL, where they weren't the best team on Monday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings 22-17 victory has saved their season and moves their record to 3-4, although we still got some work to do. But boy, oh boy, does it not feel great to get that W on Monday Night Football. We're going to talk a few things about the game here last night. Programming note reminder, Under the Lights tonight at 6:30 Central Time on this channel. Myself and my compatriot Dave from Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm guessing Dave will be doing some peacocking here about the yesterday's victory. But I digress. Before we get started, as always, we do the shout outs to those who need to be shouted out. I'll do that every single time I got a microphone. So let's just get right to it here, ladies and gentlemen. We got to say thank you to the veteran and active members of all the branches of our armed forces, as well as their families, for their sacrifice for our freedoms that we continue to enjoy in this country each and every day. Shout out to each and every one of you. Shout out also to the brave men and women who serve as our police officers, firefighters, and EMS, who in times of tragedy are the ones running towards the danger while the rest of us are simply trying to get away from it. Thank you so kindly to all of you brave men and women. As well, a shout out to our doctors, nurses, frontline workers, surgeons, and home health care providers who in our time of medical need are there to make sure we can get through any type of issues to the best of their ability. Shout out to each and every man and woman who fits those categories. Thank you so very, very much for all that you guys do, because at times y'all can work very thankless jobs. So I'm going to say thank you to you anytime I can. If you haven't already done so, wipe your feet at the door and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button and help me grow this Vikings community. Let's give a shout out right off the bat to Two-Tone Tony. Almost a complete game, but it was a great win. You are correct, sir. You are correct. So thank you kindly, Tony, for joining me here. Now, I didn't have much time to build the banners after last night, as well as being at work here today. So my production value is going to be a little light this afternoon, but we still always going to start with. Now, again, I did do this last night on the watch party, and thank you everybody who joined me for the watch party as well. But we're going to start now that we have the full and complete NFC North roundup. The Chicago Bears got a victory over the Vegas Raiders. Who cares? It's the Bears. It was your backup Division II quarterback. We don't care about the Bears. The Detroit Lions got absolutely destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens. And you know what? Some will say, oh, are the Lions frauds? Well, at least that's what they would have said about the Vikings last year. But they just got mollywopped. And you know what? With the Vikings victory on Monday Night Football, that division, the NFC North division, is still up for grabs. And oh, by the way, the most delicious part of the weekend, the Green Bay Packers lose to the Denver Broncos 19-17. I can't even get the words out of my mouth without laughing. And that's who our opponent is going to be this coming Sunday, the Green Bay Packers. Welcome to mediocrity. Welcome to not knowing. Welcome to knowing what it's like to not have 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And of course, we got our Vikings with the victory on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. It's always a great weekend when the Vikings win and the Packers lose. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Let's get back to the comments here real quick. We got Project Ez in the bit. What's going on, Project? Good to see you. Best play calling since week 1 last season. I totally agree. His play calling has most definitely gotten better. I'd like to see a little bit better in the goal-to-goal situations, whether that's play calling or execution or some combination thereof. But at the end of the day, yes, the play calling yesterday and the execution yesterday was absolutely outstanding. Two-Tone Tony's getting to my points before I do. We did leave 12 points in the red zone. There you go. Yeah. Again, Alexander Madison, the more I think about it, that pass that was behind him, Alexander really should have settled down, and that's what Kirk was anticipating him to do. But the miss by Kirk on the Jordan Addison one, okay, I'm going to put that one on Kirk there. But yeah, that's 8 points right there. You've got the missed extra point and the missed field goal. And this game basically could have been a lot more than what it was. It was a 5-point victory and a great defensive performance. But at the end of the day, the Vikings left some meat on the bone. They left some money on the table. And that's what we're going to need to get cleaned up here. But our schedule, it's looking pretty tasty. It is looking pretty tasty. Two-Tone, thanks again. A win is a win. You are absolutely correct. Okay, so let's get rolling with the points from yesterday before we move on here. So again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you kindly, everybody, for joining me. Star of the game, number 1, Jordan Addison. I mean, obviously, Jordan Addison is him, as the statement goes. I tell you what, 7 catches, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And as we said a moment ago, really should have had a third one there. But regardless, with the absence of Justin Jefferson, this kid has stepped right into his role and has not disappointed. When Jordan Addison was drafted, the 4th wide receiver of the draft class, by the way, it was a benefit to the Vikings that they still had Justin Jefferson. And some asked, well, could Jordan Addison be a number 1? Well, maybe, but we don't have to think about it. Well, now we're thinking about it, and now we are seeing it. The first pass to him, he got out-wrestled for the ball and turns into an interception. Well, he got the guy back with virtually no time left before halftime for a 60-yard touchdown. I'm running out of superlatives that I can use for this young man. He is absolutely outstanding, and I cannot wait. Until he and Justin Jefferson are on the field simultaneously. And with all due respect to KJ Osborne, if this does not show you that it should be Jefferson and Addison as your 1-2 punch, I don't know what else will. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that KJ Osborne is chopped liver. And I'm not saying that, okay, let's just discard him by the wayside. He is a much better blocker than Jordan Addison is and probably ever will be unless Jordan Addison puts on some weight. But as far as the 2 wide receiver sets, it needs to be Jefferson and Addison. KJ can come in on the 3rd wide receiver sets as well. But all I'm saying right now is Jordan Addison, absolutely the number 1 star of the game. Number 2 star of the game, Cameron Bynum. Come on down. Got 2 interceptions, and some would argue he forced the fumble on Christian McCaffrey. So he was in on all 3 of the Vikings turnovers defensively last on Monday Night Football. And my goodness, where did this kid come from? You know, he's had an opportunity and he has not let go of it. For all the talk we want to have about Lewis Seen and is he a bust and why isn't he getting playing time, when you got Harrison Smith and this Cam Bynum kid, and oh, by the way, Josh Metellus, who absolutely got burned by Brock Purdy taking a terrible angle, but I digress. The point I'm making here is this: Cameron Bynum is absolutely a star in the making and has learned alongside of Harrison Smith to be in the right place at the right time. He read Brock Purdy's eyes, and Brock Purdy didn't even see him on that game-sealing interception. And, oh, by the way, brought back the worm as the celebration after both of his interceptions. So well done to that. And what I really didn't see at the first part, but I did see it at halftime, the team celebration where they did the limbo by holding up one of their players and having the rest of them walk underneath it was pretty dang awesome as well. But defensively, credit goes also to Brian Flores, who brought an incredible game plan to – realistically, when you hold a team to 17 points, you're playing tremendous defense. Yeah, you gave up a touchdown towards the end of the half. And yes, the 49ers had the perfect call against the blitz when they threw that swing pass over to Christian McCaffrey, who all he needed to do was beat one guy and get into the end zone. That's unfortunate. That just kind of happens. But all in all, great defensive performance last night from the defense. Brock Purdy, he didn't really do all that much. He wasn't the Brock Purdy that we've come to see. And that's 2 weeks in a row where Brock Purdy has just looked kind of average. I mean, 21 for 30 for 272 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Yeah, that's a Mr. Irrelevant line. Now, yes, he did not have Deebo Samuel. He didn't have his left tackle. We understand that. And yes, if the Vikings were to play the 49ers again and everybody was healthy, it would be interesting because you bring back Samuel and Williams for them and Justin Jefferson for us. The game might play out totally different. But regardless, you can't help other teams' injuries. You play who you play when you play them. And that gets back to the old adage. It's not always who you play, but when you play them there. But shout out to Cameron Bynum, Brian Flores, and that entire defense that absolutely dominated yesterday. Again, 17 points. I mean, again, Christian McCaffrey, 15 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. That's 3 yards a carry for arguably the best running back in the NFL against arguably one of the better offensive lines, at least on paper, coming into the season. I know the 49ers have had some struggles with their offensive line as of late, but I don't care. I do not care. The Vikings absolutely did defensively what they needed to do. And as I said a moment ago, frankly, they should have won this game by more than 5 points, if we're being honest. Back to the chats. A little lighter today doing that at the noon hour, but we got to give some shout outs to the people in the building, starting with JDT93. What's going on, JDT? Good to see you. Thank you so kindly for joining me. I do appreciate that. We got Drop Shot Jake in the building. Happy Creed Day, everyone. You know what? I'm not necessarily a Creed guy, but hey, if it works, it works. So we'll take Creed Day anytime it gets us a victory and a W, no matter where we're playing at. Shout out to my SKOL brother, SKOL Mafia, Purple Gang. We are back in this thing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got Frozen North in the building. Woo! You know what? I'm gonna give you the shout. You know how we do this. Here we go. Appreciate you coming in. I also appreciate you joining the watch party last night. You are correct. You know, I'm probably gonna be mollywopped later on this evening during Under the Lights. Mr. Positivity Dave's like, why not? Why can't we do this? And what's interesting about it too is that on that first possession where we get the interception, again, good play by the defender, got the inside leverage, pulled the ball away from Jordan Addison. Who here wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, here we go again? But the Vikings turned it around after giving up some yards. They gave up a decent chunk of yards between the 20s, but stiffened up in the red zone for the most part. And good to see Dean Lowry actually does exist with the fumble recovery. Imagine that. Dean Lowry actually does exist. Shout out to SKOL Mafia. Dave did pick San Francisco. All right, thank you for letting me know that. So, you know, if he comes at me too hard, I'll remind him of that. But in all seriousness, a great victory for the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. Star of the game number 3, who else? Kirk Cousins. You know what? For all these narratives about him on Monday Night Football, hey, he played arguably his best game as a Minnesota Viking from start to finish. I know some are going to say, well, that Denver game where he threw 4 touchdowns or led the team to 4 touchdowns on 4 possessions in the second half. Yeah, great come from behind victory, but you can only have a come from behind victory if you did nothing for the first half and are down 20 points at halftime. So, yes, that might have been his best second half. Others will talk about that tie in Green Bay in 2018 where, you know, they scored 22 points in the fourth quarter. True, but when you only have 7 points on the board through 3 quarters, I'm not going to call it a complete game. I will say that last year in Detroit, ultimately a game we lost, was one of his better games too, where he literally tried his darndest to overcome the awful defense we had that day. So bottom line is this. I'm going to call this the most complete game that Kirk Cousins has played since joining the Minnesota Vikings, and I don't think it's particularly close. 35 for 45 for 378 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And like I said, really should have had 3. And we're going to talk a little bit about that red zone execution here shortly. But my goodness, Kirk Cousins, take a bow. I love that Justin Jefferson. We played that at the beginning, putting the ESPN top 10 chain around his neck as he's trying to get interviewed. And he's like, I kind of like this. That's just Kirk for us. You know what? For good, for bad, indifferent, whatever has been said or will be said about this guy, he is like a kid in the candy store. He is one of those guys that just loves to play and oftentimes doesn't have everything around him perfect. But last night on Monday Night Football, He was absolutely outstanding. What I like most about his game is, number one, the offensive line. Let's give some shout outs to them. 0 sack. What the heck? Hello, 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 hello. Uh-oh. Not sure what happened there. A little technical difficulty. Sorry about that. Last night, 0 sacks on Kirk Cousins. Shout out to the offensive line for an absolute great performance. Dalton Reisner has made his case to say that I'm not just going to give this job back to Ezra Cleveland. We've been clamoring for it for forever, that we brought in a guard that had better pass protection than the two that we had, and we finally got to see it on full display. Yes, he got 10 snaps last week against the Chicago Bears, not a big enough sample size, but my goodness, that offensive line kept Kirk Cousins clean, gave him clean pockets, gave him plenty of time. But circling back to Kirk Cousins, the best play of the day for me was on that final drive, ultimately that ended in the missed field goal from Greg Joseph. He was absolutely surrounded, had the pockets collapse around him, and we have seen him panic many times in those situations. In that one, he shuffled his feet, a little sidestep, little duck under, and sidearmed that ball right to Jordan Addison. Granted, there was a holding penalty, so even if that play hadn't gone as well as it did, it would have still given the Vikings a first down. But nevertheless, great pocket awareness from Kirk Cousins. And what have I said ad nauseum, that Kirk doesn't always show the best pocket presence. And if we could get that kind of performance from Kirk Cousins on a more consistent basis, the whole narrative would be changed. But for right now, Kirk Cousins yesterday, absolutely outstanding. Let's get back to the comments here. Hold on just a quick moment here. Who do we got here? Who else? I know I saw. Yeah, there we go. We got Cody in the building. What's going on, Cody? Good to see you. Thank you so kindly for joining. I appreciate you. JDT, everyone on D was playing well aside from Metellus missing tackles. Yes, absolutely. That was not the best look for Josh Metellus. You got Brock Purdy scrambling because you had a great coverage, and he totally takes a terrible angle, and Brock Purdy runs around him like he's a running back. But I'm sure that Metellus is going to hear about that one during the film reviews. Might not be the best stats in the game, but he made the biggest statement. Yeah, I totally agree. To wrap up here for this lunchtime episode, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to talk more about it on Thursday with our upcoming schedule. But for right now, we have 5 days. 5 days. And we going to be in Lambeau Field. And the Green Bay Packers are finally seeing what it is to not have a Hall of Fame quarterback. There is a generation and a half of Packer fans that don't know what to do right now because they've never seen it. They don't know what it means to not have a Brett Favre or an Aaron Rodgers, and I cannot wait. I've always said that the teams coming off playing San Francisco the next week have struggled because they've been in physical matchups with the 49ers because of how physical their offensive and defensive lines are. And the fact that we were playing on Monday Night Football does stack against the Vikings a little bit. But to a team that just lost to the Denver Broncos, I love our chances. Absolutely, JDT. The Packers have been spoiled for decades. You are absolutely correct. We got shout out Cody, take down the Packers at their field. You better believe it. You better believe that. Shout out in the building. We got Web Dev, bro. Oh yeah. You know what? I'm gonna give you one. I got to give Web Dev one, y'all. Y'all know that. Here we go. I give you 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Thank you kindly, everybody, for joining me here this afternoon. I very much do appreciate it. And reminder, I will be live again at 6:30 p.m. tonight with my compatriot Dave from Minnesota Sports Talk. So if you don't already subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. And on your way out, if you can go to the upcoming episode and hit the like button there so that we can get this pushed out through the YouTube algorithm and get some more people in the house tonight, that would be great as well. Two-Tone Tony says, yes, absolutely. Kirko's best game thus far for sure. I think so. I do. And again, I know that people will bring up games where he had better stat lines. And it's not necessarily about the stats lines. It's about context. And the context is outside of that interception, which was kind of a fluke play and a good play by the defender, Kirk was almost utterly flawless last night. The only thing that I'm going to, ding Kirk on is his miss of Jordan Addison in the end zone. That's the only real thing I'm going to ding Kirk Cousins on last night. Okay, time for some nitpicks. Kevin O'Connell, you had a great play calling game, with the exception of inside the red zone with goal-to-goal situations. You get a pass interference in the end zone to Jordan Addison. You got 1st and goal from the 1. And we dipsy-doodled around and ended up having to settle for a field goal. You cannot let an opportunity like that go. 98% of the time, you get a 1st and goal from the 1-yard line, you're scoring touchdowns. Okay, maybe not 98% times, but quite a few times anyway. All I'm going to say is this: figure out why our goal-to-go offense can be somewhat mediocre at times. Both of the touchdowns of Jordan Addison came outside of the red zone. We can't be settling for field goals. I know we've got an easier portion of our schedule. We've talked about that ad nauseum. And yeah, the Monday night game against the 49ers was kind of a pivotal point in this season. If you had lost and gone to 2-5, it might have been fire sale time. And I have said on multiple occasions, hey, this game is our season. Because if you win this game, then you will have shown us something other than wins against Chicago and Carolina. And that's absolutely what they did. And had you lost this game, it would have been, okay, you can only beat other trash teams, and we'll see what happens over the next week before the trading deadline. The only thing I'm going to say right now is no, I seriously doubt that the Vikings are going to be sellers at the trade deadline unless the unthinkable happens and you lose to the Green Bay Packers next week, but I just don't see that happening. So with all of that said, do the Vikings become buyers now at the trade deadline? I'd love to pluck Patrick Surtain Jr. off of the Denver Broncos roster, get him in here as another piece to the secondary, because, Andrew Booth Jr., he is kind of what he is. Mekhi Blackman's a rookie who's not getting a whole lot of playing time right now. Yes, Byron Murphy Jr. played well yesterday outside of a couple completions here and there. And, Evans was pretty good. The whole defense, pretty good. But I'd love to get one more cornerback in that secondary. And if you can get Patrick Surtain Jr. for a relatively cheap price, I would absolutely make that deal. That being said, part 2 to Kevin O'Connell's play calling. Stop with trying to be Philadelphia. You don't have Jason Kelce and their offensive line, as good as our offensive line played last night, and you don't have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. Do not ever try the tush push, the Philadelphia flop, whatever you want to call that crap. Somehow, some way, they have figured something out. They have the pieces to do it. We don't. Kevin O'Connell, do not ever call the tush push again. If you want to call a standard quarterback sneak like on 3rd down where they're not expecting it, fine. But do not do the tush push at the goal line where everybody on the planet is expecting it, and you don't have the right guys to run that play. I'm sorry. Don't ever do that again. By and large, as I've said, I like the game calling from Kevin O'Connell, but that nitpicking thing that I'm doing right now is about what he did in the red zone, particularly in goal-to-goal situations. Don't ever do that again. Please. I'm begging you. Don't ever do that again. Let's get back to the comments here before we get up out of here. Shout out Zach in the building. What's going on? Whoa, alive right now. Yeah, you know what? I figured I didn't have a show last night. Did have the watch party. So I wanted to get a few things on a little content out here. And again, reminder, I'll be on 6:30 tonight as usual on Tuesday nights with Dave from Minnesota Sports Talk. And so we're going to break down this game even more, as well as the full outlook on, how far can this team go? Can this team still get into the playoffs? Sure. Absolutely, it could. Does this team have a chance to win the division still? It's going to be tight, because for all the good games that we have on our schedule, the Lions kind of play the same schedule for the most part, but we'll touch on that a little bit more later. Yeah, Two-Tone Tony says absolutely on Surtain. Zach, what do we got here? I don't understand our red zone offense. We're lucky our touchdowns are not coming from the. Yes, I was just saying that, Zach, right before you got in the building, that we got to be better in the red zone. We've got to turn more of these opportunities into touchdowns. We still don't have a rushing touchdown on the season yet. I mean, how ridiculous is that? I'm sorry. I know. Justin, take the win. Don't complain. Nah. As I said at the beginning, we are here to improve, and we are here to give our level best. And right now, I don't understand how 7 games into a season, you don't have a single rushing touchdown. I'm sorry. But shout out to Zach. Thank you kindly for the comment there as well. So to wrap this lunchtime episode up here, I'm just going to say this. The Vikings are back. Their season is back. They've had a lot of close games up until last. I mean, again, 7 one-score games. It just is who they are in the Kevin O'Connell era. You had 11 close games last year, and you've had 7 close games this year. 18 games. 18 games and through a season and a half. One-score games. That's just who they are. Now, I want to see the Vikings get out of this one-score victory stuff and get a blowout win against the Green Bay Packers. Start their Halloween nightmares early. Just put them out of their misery. They're a bad team. Their quarterback is just an average at best quarterback. If you can do what you did to Brock Purdy, you should be able to do that and more against Jordan Love. So that's all I'm going to say on that for right now. Thank you kindly, everybody, for joining me. If you didn't let me try that again. Thank you kindly, everybody, for joining me. If you didn't hit the like button on the way in, hit the like button because, like I said, this was just kind of impromptu. So let's hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you don't already subscribe, and come on back at 6:30 Central Time tonight for Under the Lights, where Dave and I will break this down even some more. And I'm sure Dave and I will have a few things to argue about. I love my brother, but that's what we do. That's what we do. But at the end of it, the Vikings season is on. No more talk about trading away assets. No more talk about what are we going to do next year. Next year doesn't matter right now. It no longer matters right now. All that matters right now is we just beat arguably one of the 2 best teams in the NFC, and some would say arguably the most complete team in the NFL, and that was the San Francisco 49ers. So enjoy this. I'm sure if you went into the office today and had some Green Bay Packer fans, or if you had some 49er fans, this guy right here, I'm mad at myself for not taking up my 49ers fan on the bet. She's like, hey, do you want to wager on this game? I'm like, heck no. Kind of wish I had, but that's all right. Shout out Frozen North one more time. Thanks, Jay. Nice stream last night. Yes, again, Frozen, thank you so much for you and for everybody. Two-Tone Tony as a couple of examples for joining me on my first watch party last night. If you didn't see it, fast forward to the parts where Jordan Addison got his touchdown, his 60-yard bomb, and you'll see me losing my mind, as well as the final Cam Bynum interception. But thanks again for joining last night, and thank you, everybody, for joining me here this afternoon. For now, SKOL to the next episode, and we will see you tonight at 6:30 Central Time for Under the Lights. Have a good afternoon. See you then. Bye-bye.